When you think of Viola Davis, you probably think of this absolute powerhouse. She's one of the most acclaimed actors of our time, the first African American to get that triple crown of acting, an Oscar, an Emmy, and a Tony. But the story of how she got there, wow. It is a journey of just unimaginable hardship and, ultimately, profound healing. In her memoir, Finding Me, she doesn't just lay out her life story. She really offers a roadmap for anyone who's ever felt lost or broken or ashamed. So, okay, let's dive into this truly remarkable story of transformation. The book kicks off with this incredibly powerful quote from Chekhov, and it just perfectly frames the central question of her entire life. See, this isn't just a memoir about becoming a famous actor. Nope, it's about a desperate, lifelong search to answer that one question: why am I alive? What is my purpose? And for Viola, finding that answer didn't come from escaping her past, but from finally, bravely turning around to face it head on. So, every story has a beginning, right? But for a young Viola Davis growing up in Central Falls, Rhode Island, her world was anything but ordinary. It was a world completely defined by trauma, a world she was desperately, desperately running from. And it was all symbolized by a single chilling address. 128 Washington Street. To you and me, that's just an address. But for the Davis family, 128 became this chilling code word. It meant hell. It was a condemned building where the family lived in conditions that are, frankly, almost impossible to even comprehend. This wasn't just being poor. This was a daily assault on their humanity. And I mean, this wasn't some abstract idea of hardship. She describes rats so bold they literally ate the faces off her dolls. Imagine that. The constant smell of urine because the toilets never, ever worked. It was a level of poverty and shame that, in her own words, completely eviscerates you. This is the reality she was running from every single day of her life. And the horrors at home, they were matched by just pure cruelty outside. She was relentlessly bullied for being Black, for being poor. This quote it's devastating because it shows how all that abuse burrowed its way inside of her. It wasn't just about physical threats. It was about the complete breaking of her spirit. She internalized all their hatred and came to believe she was everything they said she was: ugly, unwanted, and unworthy. But then, like in any hero's journey, there's a call to adventure, a way out. For Viola, that call was acting. And it wasn't about glamour or fame. Not at all. It was a desperate cry for rebirth, a chance to become someone, anyone, other than that scared, shamed little girl from 128. I mean, the stakes just could not have been higher. On one side, you've got the brutal reality of her life: poverty, abuse, racism, just feeling completely invisible. And on the other side, there was the dream of acting, which to her represented everything she craved: acceptance, being seen, feeling worthy. It felt like the only escape hatch she had. So for her, ambition wasn't just ambition. It was a survival strategy. She truly believed that if she could just achieve enough, if she could just become somebody, she could somehow detox her past. All the shame, the poverty, the pain. Her intense drive to succeed was really a drive to heal herself. But as Viola starts this journey, she discovers she's not just fighting one war. She's fighting two. There was the visible, external battle for her career, and then there was the invisible, internal battle against the ghosts of her past. Now, on the surface, her professional climb was meteoric. She sharpens her incredible talent at Juilliard, the belly of the beast, as she calls it. She becomes the celebrated interpreter of August Wilson's masterpieces on Broadway. And then she heads to Hollywood. But success, it didn't bring peace. Right, because even as she's winning awards, she's fighting these two battles simultaneously. Externally, she's up against an industry just steeped in colorism and sexism, constantly being told she wasn't pretty enough, getting typecast over and over again in roles like drug-addicted mothers. But internally, the demons were just as fierce. The massive anxiety, that constant feeling of being an outsider, and the voice of that terrified third-grade Black girl was still running the show. And this brings us to the most critical turning point in the whole story. Her journey starts to shift from this quest for external validation to a deep internal search for healing. She starts looking for a kind of elixir, not for fame, but for a magic potion that could actually truly heal her spirit. Her healing didn't just happen overnight. It came in a series of these powerful, life-altering steps. It started in therapy, with just a single question that completely changed her perspective. It continued with a bold prayer for love, which brought her husband Julius into her life. And finally, it found this incredible outlet in her art, where she confronted her deepest demons through the role of Annalise Keating. This quote from her therapist is the absolute core of her transformation. I mean, think about it. For decades, Viola had been trying to go back in time and heal that traumatized 8-year-old girl. But her therapist just flipped the script entirely. He told her that little girl doesn't need healing. That little girl survived. She was a warrior. It was the adult Viola who needed help to finally embrace the strength of that little girl. This single realization changed everything. And that brings us to the powerful conclusion of her journey. After a lifetime of running, Viola finally finds her way home. Not to a place, but to herself. She finds her elixir. So, what was this magical elixir she found? This. Right here. Radical self-acceptance. She was no longer ashamed of herself. The ultimate prize of her entire journey wasn't the Oscar or the Emmy. It was realizing that the most painful parts of her past, they weren't burdens to be erased. They were badges to be owned. They were, in fact, the source of her greatest strength, her warrior fuel. And that is the incredible gift of Finding Me. It leaves all of us with this profound and honestly provocative question. It challenges us to look at our own scars, our own shame, not as weaknesses to be hidden, but as the source of our greatest power. It asks us to really consider what might happen if we, too, decided to finally stop running.